Hi, you're watching This Is My Architecture. We're going to show you how to use YubiKey for MFA on AWS. Joern from Kreuzwerker is here. Joern, welcome.
Thank you.
Tell us, what does Kreuzwerker do?
Okay, we are a consulting company based in Berlin and in Warsaw. And in the cloud operations department, we are consulting startups and enterprise customers. And one of the aspects of the consulting is how to deal with complex organizational setups, with complex requirements. And nowadays, you very often have a structure on AWS where you have multiple accounts. And in these multiple accounts, you have multiple roles, IAM roles, that are mapped to functional roles, like, for instance, a cost control role, or an admin role, or an operator role, or even more specific stuff like being able to deploy a certain workload. And one of the things that we always consider when doing consulting in these kind of environments is to get an idea about the multi-factor authentication stance of these organizations.
Mm-hmm. That's something you recommend to everyone?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And the thing that we found most convenient for multi-factor access is to combine the virtual MFA devices that AWS IAM is offering, to combine those with a physical USB-based smart card with a YubiKey. Mm-hmm. And we wrote a little bit of tooling to make this convenient and relatively transparent.
Great. Can you walk us through the details of what you've built?
Of course. So the tool is written in Go, so it is relatively cross-platform and platform independent. And it basically works like this. It offers one mode where you can register your YubiKey. And this registering works like this. So what we typically recommend is that you have a group set up with a self-service group. And in the self-service group, IAM users, like this guy here on the left, is capable of registering a key pair, so the regular key pair that you would have in your AWS profile, and a virtual MFA device. And the secret of this virtual MFA device then, through this register command, gets put on the YubiKey as well.
That's where the YubiKey comes in. Exactly.
And you cannot get it back from the YubiKey. You can just generate these one-time passwords, these OTPs. So what you do then with this tool is, and that's the other kind of mode of this tool, is it uses exactly the same paths and profiles and environment variable configurations as the rest of the AWS SDK. So you can continue to work with the regular profiles and your configurations, the MFA serials that you can put into your profiles. And in a typical setup, this would work like this. Let's say you are part of an admin group in account A, and you want to assume the admin role and the associated policy for admin in account B to do admin things, to become the admin, right? So you use STS to assume this role, and then you become an admin wearing an admin hat.
Cool. What are some of the challenges that you typically run into?
Yeah, so the first challenge is the question of where do we actually express the requirement for multi-factor. And there are many possible policies where you can put into this thing. And this requirement for a multi-factor device being in the context, so to speak, of a session is a so-called condition. And we always recommend to put this into the condition for the trust policy. And that means that the check if an MFA device is being used is done when assuming the role. And the challenge is, of course, is that when you put it in any other kind of policy,
there's a number of policies on AWS, right?
Exactly. That could just fail for some reason. Yeah. Because another interesting thing you can do is an admin is a really privileged role. Let's say it's really super privileged, much more privileged than an operator for a certain workload. So what you want to do is you want to kind of say the admin, the multi-factor device of the admin must never leave his or her computer. Right? Mm-hmm, yep. It must be really physically present. And for an operator, you could say it is enough if this is present all 4 hours. Because
there's less of a security risk associated with that role.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is something that you can do here quite conveniently, because you just say in the condition the YubiKey or the MFA must not be older than 1 hour, and you say the role can only be assumed for 1 hour. And then it's really, really clear. And since the tool what we built, AWS U, makes this extremely convenient and transparent to get this secret from the YubiKey into the API context, you can assume in many different roles, many different accounts, many different roles, to always execute operations only with the necessary privileges and always have an MFA in place.
Because that's also a best practice recommendation that you do least privileges.
Absolutely.
And so that's where the number of roles comes from.
Exactly.
And that's where that helps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the opposite, or the alternative to this would be to just enter manually these OTP tokens every time you need to assume a role.
Yeah, and that's complicated. So here with this, as long as the key is plugged in to the computer, it automatically renews when you're using your wrapper tool to access the CLI, to access the API.
Exactly.
Cool. All right. Thanks so much for showing us the details of your tool, Joern.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks for watching This Is My Architecture.